This week on Commonwealth Conversation, 5 Virginia experts discuss the problem of AIDS in the workplace. Doctors, lawyers, and businessmen give their advice on how to deal with AIDS at work.
The visibility of AIDS is not great.
Dr. Richard Keeling is Director of Student Health at the University of Virginia.
There is no one in his unit or in the firm who has AIDS. In the first place is probably inaccurate. I mean, it's very possible that someone who was there with AIDS wouldn't have said so. The stigmatization of the disease is such that a lot of people with AIDS are unlikely to come forward. Many people are fearful that if they went to the manager or to the employer and told them that they had AIDS, that they'd be fired. And for that reason, it's very likely that an employee wouldn't be aware if he had someone with AIDS. Beyond that, the major population infected by the virus that causes AIDS is continuously invisible for a long period of time, because the incubation period for the disease is so long that it's very possible that you could have employees who are infectious, that is, capable of transmitting the virus, who are completely healthy. And the fact that you can't see somebody with AIDS doesn't therefore mean there aren't people there who have the virus, who might someday get AIDS, although they don't necessarily have to someday get AIDS. So that employers who look and say, well, it hasn't happened yet, I don't have to worry about it, are, I think, deceiving themselves. They're also deceiving themselves because if it does happen, if there is someone there with AIDS, it's possible that there would be quite a reaction from other employees. There might be serious concern about transmission, or there might be hysteria. There might be discrimination. There might even be harassment. And all of that is a lot less likely if the employer has thought ahead of time to educate or provide information for employees about AIDS, so that if it ever does happen, the reaction to it is a little more reasonable. And the time for the employer to strike is while the disease hasn't shown up yet. And what you don't want to do is to wait until you already have a problem and then go back and try to calm it down. What happened this past September in Arcadia, Florida, with the kids being thrown out of the school system and the house burned down, should be a pretty stark lesson, I would think, to an employer or a manager, that people unprepared to deal with this problem commonly do irrational things. And it would be far more reasonable to educate people before it comes along than it is to wait for tragedy. If you try to analyze what the costs are of doing an AIDS prevention education program versus the costs of not doing it, I think it comes out in favor of doing it. If you do the program, then you run some risks, no question, that the concepts and some of the vocabulary that you have to use in AIDS prevention are things that sometimes offend people, and people's sensibilities may be damaged by some of the words you use and some of the phrases and some of the things you talk about.
Carter Younger is an attorney with the Richmond firm of McGuire, Woods, Battle & Booth. He recently participated in a seminar for employers in Richmond.
All right, so why are you all going to be concerned about it? Well, the reasons are obvious. Number one, it's going to be very expensive. If you want to look at it that way, your insurance costs are going to be way up there. They're talking about costs as high as $150,000 per AIDS victim. I saw some figures that said that the hospital cost for somebody with AIDS, they had 5,400 cases, they averaged about $20,000 some dollars a year, of which the hospitals, because they couldn't get enough Medicaid coverage, Medicare insurance, and private funds couldn't cover it, took a loss of $9,000 per head. So it's going to be costly for hospitals. You obviously have coworker concerns and anxiety if they know somebody they're working with has AIDS. And you can provide information, and you should, and we suggest you provide it through employee assistance programs and the rest of it, but you're going to have those concerns, and as it points out here, if the employee takes some action because of those concerns, say a work stoppage or whatever, that may be protected conduct, it may be protected concerted activity. On the other hand, maybe it won't. If you have educated the employee and they take an unreasonable position and are trying to get you to discriminate against somebody who has AIDS. We talk about handicap laws, and I won't go over all that because you're familiar with handicap. Dick Oviatt points out in the back, he's had a recent experience in Florida, and Florida prohibits AIDS discrimination as a handicap discrimination, and that it is not a reasonable accommodation in Florida to transfer someone to another job. I think his job involved somebody who waited on customers. And it was not a reasonable accommodation in the court of Florida to transfer that person to a non-customer contact job. And I think what you'll see is the Title VII cases that dealt with customer preference be transferred to aides, so that customer preference will not be a reason, justifiable reason to discriminate. What are your defenses? Not otherwise qualified, the AIDS victim still has to be able to perform the job. There will come a point when they can't perform the job.
Well, I think it's a matter of awareness that...
Eric Stevens is a personnel director at Richmond's DuPont plant. He organized an AIDS information workshop for the plant's 3,000 employees in September.
We became aware that our folks probably could benefit by knowing something about AIDS. That's what it is, awareness.
So what steps did you take?
Well, we formed a committee and we disciplined ourselves to be able to separate an awful lot of what's out there. We found out there's more than enough information, and that we thought we would best serve by if we looked at a lot of tapes and we listened to a lot of films and saw a lot of information, that we should give ourselves the ability to throw away the 25%, let's say, that's ho-hum, and the 25% that, we're all going to die tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so we made up a concept saying that we are going to provide high-quality, objective, steady stream of information. And we decided to do it by, one, having an open house that was very apparent to everyone, and then secondly, provide this steady stream of information on AIDS from then on. So we had an open house. We had 4 Tuesdays in September, consecutive Tuesdays, from 7 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. And so that took care of shift people. You have 4 Tuesdays, and 7 to 5 is a long time period. And we invited people by handouts, our electronic mail service here, our safety sign, letters, bulletins, to come in to this open house. And what we did was we got one of our better conference rooms and divided it in half. One half we had a 16-minute tape, an excellent tape that we had picked on AIDS. And then the other half we got bulletins and posters and articles and easel sheets and everything else, and it became a sort of an information half of the room. We set up liquid refreshments so that when you walked in the room, you could kind of survey the land and get yourself a coffee or Coke or something, and then either browse and pick up the bulletins and or pamphlets. We had about 18. It was a pretty good choice. And then we had the time posted the next time for the showing of the movie. So then you could go in and see the movie. And if your timing was such you went right in, you could come back out and pick up the browse around and pick up all the stuff we had, read the posters.
Nearly 1,000 of DuPont's 3,000 workers attended that special AIDS workshop at the South Richmond plant. We'll have more on AIDS at work after this.
Hello, this is Dr. Bowen, Secretary of Health and Human Services. I'm often asked, where can I get good information about AIDS, and where can I go for help? A good source of information is the Surgeon General's report on AIDS. You can get it by calling the National AIDS Hotline. The hotline is an excellent source of help, too. It can put you in touch with medical service providers in your community. The AIDS hotline number is 1-800-342-AIDS.
If your car's engine were to stop, you probably know what to do to get it started again. The sad fact is, more people know how to jumpstart a car than know how to save a life. Learn how to jumpstart a life. Learn Red Cross CPR.
I'm Randy Davis, and this is a special edition of Commonwealth Conversation on AIDS at the workplace. Bob Evans is a spokesman for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Virginia. He says employers don't have to have any special insurance to deal with the AIDS issue.
Generally speaking, we are addressing AIDS as we would any other illness. It is covered under our policies just as any other covered illness is, subject to all the standard waiting periods and previous existing conditions and that sort of thing. So there's nothing special about it. The concern that I think businesses might have is that there are efforts underway in the commercial insurance industry to address AIDS with some sort of extraordinary methods, requiring testing of employees or building restrictions into coverage for AIDS. All of that is in a formative stage right now. In just about every state, legislators are addressing the question of whether insurance companies should be allowed to do those sort of things. To my knowledge, there is no firm position yet. There certainly is not in Virginia. We do anticipate that the Virginia legislature will be addressing this point. We have no intention at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of altering our policies at this time.
Oh, I mean, we get many calls each day, both through the Virginia AIDS Hotline and here in the central office.
Dr. Jane Bagala with the State Health Department fields telephone calls on the Virginia AIDS Information Hotline.
Well, basically, if they're trying to deal with coming up with policies in the workplace, we refer them to a number of projects which have already been done by large major employers in other parts of the United States, such as Levi Strauss in San Francisco. And we try to explain to them that it's very important that they gather together a committee within from their own workforce and within their own workplace to deal with some of the policy development issues, as well as set up a strategy for a series of workshops, programs to bring accurate AIDS information to their staff. Not just information, but the prevention type messages that will really prevent further transmission of the virus. It's my feeling that they're just calling out of concern for their employees, and because the media is bringing us news of AIDS literally every day in some new form or another. So I think employers are really taking a major step forward in realizing they have an important captive audience, and that by giving them AIDS education, they can perhaps prevent having to deal with AIDS in other forms in terms of health care benefits or down the line with someone infected in their workplace. I think it's a very wise step to start with AIDS education for a number of reasons. In that way, you can stifle the sense of hysteria in the workplace by telling people how AIDS is truly transmitted and bringing the message to them all the ways in which it's not transmitted, i.e. occupationally and socially. I mean, you cannot catch AIDS from doorknobs. You cannot catch AIDS from computer terminals. People need to know that up front to help stifle some of the fear. There's a tendency with AIDS to focus on the wrong things and to deny focusing on the things that really need focusing on. The things that really need focusing on require a sense of responsibility about personal, intimate behaviors. The things that really don't require so much focus on, except to know that they are indeed ways in which AIDS are not transmitted, are such things as what to do about doorknobs or the person you're sharing a desk with or an office with, because that just really doesn't pose a problem in terms of transmission of this virus. And the most important things we can do in terms of prevention is to tell people to look at risk-associated behaviors in regards to sexual activity or intravenous drug-using activity, and to stop focusing on casual transmission since it really isn't a problem in the workforce. I would like to mention that the Virginia AIDS hotline number is 1-800-533-4148 for anyone who has individual concerns and would like to speak to a counselor, and it's open from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays.
I'm Randy Davis for Commonwealth Conversations.